Charlie was a young man, 28 I think, when he ended his life. As I understand it, his family didn't know about depression. They didn't know about the warning signs of depression. And Charlie really kept it pretty much to himself. So on the outside, it was this incredibly successful, very attractive, dynamic, popular man, succeeding in all areas. And really it seemed from out of the blue he ended his life. And I think as his family have gone on to work out the reasons why, their ignorance about depression, they missed the warning signs.
We as a family realised that there had been some signs, but we were very ignorant about depression and what caused it. We also found out after he died that there were signs he was showing at work, which nobody had picked up there, and then there were signs he was showing in the house which he lived in London. And we suddenly realised that there was a tremendous ignorance about depression, the symptoms of depression.
There are a variety of warning signs, so a change in sleep pattern, so people being unable to sleep or sometimes sleeping too much, but the sleep pattern being disrupted, inability to concentrate, being unable to kind of engage with other people because they're becoming lost in their own world. Loss of appetite is very common, a loss of sexual interest, really feelings of worthlessness, of hopelessness.
I mean, Charlie started not to do the things he liked doing. So, for example, somebody would say, come and play golf, but he'd say he didn't want to play golf. He was usually the life and soul of a party, but he was now not easy to live with.
There's a tremendous amount of social stigma and fear associated with the notion of mental health, and in particular for men, because men in the UK and in the United States are raised to be strong, to be stoic, to handle problems on their own. When they do run into a problem, to keep it to themselves. And emotions, more vulnerable emotions like fear and sadness, are stereotypically considered to be kind of feminine.
We were also conscious of the fact that although we tried to get Charlie to go and seek help, he wouldn't. He didn't talk about things very much. Very typical young man who bottles these things up rather than comes out and tells you whether he's got a problem.
Men actually suffer from depression less than women in terms of these surveys and how they report, but their suicide rate is 4 times on average that of women. So mental health problems are significant in men and very serious as well.
It starts with young boys, to be frank with you. I mean, there's consistent evidence that parents treat young boys differently than they treat young girls, so they tend to be less responsive to boys' displays of emotion than they are to girls. And then this continues on into adolescence when boys enter what might be considered manhood, and those messages about handling problems on your own and also acting outward when you have problems, through things like substance abuse and anger and aggression. These messages still get reinforced. They're reinforced by peers and they're reinforced in the media, and there's certainly much that we can do about it. Some of that happens at the end of the spectrum when you're talking about mental health care, and that needs to be provided certainly for illnesses such as depression, which are risk factors for suicide. But it also happens at the beginning when we're teaching young boys how to handle emotions and problems in their lives, and we need to be teaching them to reach out rather than to self-destroy or to keep things private.
We set about this trust in order to seek to educate particularly young people about the symptoms of depression, so that they would recognize it in themselves and possibly recognize it in others, almost as important. We wanted to make sure that help was there, so we set about trying to help GPs to be more aware of the symptoms of depression. And it's necessary to have therapists and psychiatrists available, particularly therapists.
The evidence shows that about 50% of people will go on to make a full and lasting recovery from depression. From some of the anxiety disorders, the figures can be as high as 80-90% for something like panic disorder. And the treatments are not just effective, but they're relatively brief. So there are very good effective treatments out there. They're becoming increasingly available because of the government programme that's within Berkshire. And we would do all we could to encourage people to seek the help that they need.